No, because I am 100% confident that this is what straight men see when they are looking at a mediocre thin woman and her exceptionally hot fat friend standing next to each other.
Yes, you're pretty.
You're not looking at me.
Yes, you're pretty.
Do you think I'm pretty? Well, look at me. Look at me. Look at me.
I'm you're pretty. You're pretty.
So Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has been in my list for a while. He had a whole op-ed about being Republican that got scrubbed from the internet, first of all. But my dude has reached a new low with fatphobic comments towards a Muppet. A Muppet! Do better.
So I read over The Rock's tweet and I really could not find anything fatphobic about it. If I missed something, please point it out to me. But I'm just really confused how effortless it was for her to find fatphobia inside of this tweet.
Can someone in Hollywood please tell Ginnifer Goodwin that she is not fat? I am so tired of her pretending she's fat for her whole career. I mean, you're gonna tell me that Ginnifer Goodwin has problems fitting into jeans? This is her newest show. No.
Wow! That is so crazy.
So to start off, I actually agree with her that this actress isn't fat. However, anyone can struggle to get into their jeans. I struggle to get into my jeans sometimes, and I don't even weigh 110 pounds. Her perspective just seems to indicate that she thinks skinny people couldn't relate to any of her problems. So she wants to see people who look like her struggling in the same ways as her, I guess. It just seems like it could be a relatable moment rather than a conflict in her mind.
I want to get started by telling you all that I recently lost 30 pounds. Sorry, gained. I recently gained 30 pounds, but now I know who supports the diet industrial complex.
Please forgive me your grace. Can't even look me in the face.
So one of my biggest fat representation in media pet peeves is when fatphobia shows up in a place, time period, or community where it may not actually belong. Bridgerton is a great example of this, a time period where fat was considered beautiful, yet you have a whole storyline about a fat character not being considered beautiful. And then in fantasy series like Dune, Game of Thrones, Star Wars, fatphobia persists even though we can totally believe in fictional creatures and made-up worlds. There was even a fatphobic joke inserted into the new West Side Story movie that was not in the original, and it's a joke about, oh, we don't want to move our kids to America because they'll get fat if they're in America, when this is a Puerto Rican community where, number one, thinness may not have been considered the most beautiful thing in that community, but also at the time, America wasn't even the obesity epidemic place that we think of it as today. This is so unnecessary, and it's punching down. That joke is just there to get cheap laughs because fat people are easy targets.
Okay, so this clip is exactly what I was talking about in my first TikTok compilation video. So the whole goal here is to muddy the waters in terms of why we've defined fitness or beauty standards in the terms that we have. For starters, beauty standards and health are not the same thing. People are doing insane things to themselves in the name of beauty that are definitely not healthy just because of new beauty standards that are emerging. I'm not exactly sure what fatphobia she's talking about in all the movies she listed, but just like in life, there are always characters that are unpopular. Nobody has universal appeal, but this community tries to demand it by threatening to call you mean names if you don't unconditionally, positively reinforce them. Also, when we talk about larger bodies being idealized because of access to nutrition being a sign of wealth, it's conveniently ignored that those large-bodied, wealthy individuals also began exhibiting health problems that were not experienced by the poor people who couldn't afford to overindulge. But I actually think the emphasis on beauty standard rather than health is pretty honest here. I think the majority of the anger in this community comes from the feelings of insecurity in their appearance, and rather than doing something about it, all the effort is going into content to propagate ideas that reinforce lack of effort as some sort of revolutionary protest in the name of the patriarchy, racism, ableism. want to make the world a better place? Let yourself go, overindulge on every whim, and resist exercise at all costs.
Thanks for saying this, Laura. I think it actually just reinforces the point I'm trying to make. Diet culture and fat phobia have caused society to automatically view fat bodies in a very negative light. You look at us and you make assumptions about us based on our size. And I don't need to justify my health to anyone, and I don't owe you a rundown of what I eat or how much I exercise, because I don't think that you would ask that of a thin person. But just for your information, I don't think that I eat any more than the average thin person. In fact, I'd guess that I probably eat a more healthy, balanced diet than a lot of them, and I probably move my body just as much, but because I look the way I do. You won't believe that, and there's probably not much I can do to convince you of that fact. So, there you go.
Okay, so this video is in a similar style. It's another one of those videos where the whole object is to confound the viewer, make them question whether or not that body type could actually be achieved on a healthy, balanced diet and regular exercise. And it honestly really frustrates me. I have gained weight in my life, and it absolutely required me to be consuming more calories and moving less than I usually did. And when I lost the weight, it required the opposite. No, you can't look at someone and tell much about their life, but we all give off information about ourselves in subtle ways, like the kind of car you drive or don't drive, your clothing, eye contact, etc. Our bodies do the same thing. Think about the last time you saw someone who looked super buff. Was there a voice in your mind that asked, I wonder if he achieved that body through trauma and genetics? Or do we know that muscle growth and retention are only achieved through weight training? I don't know. So hopefully you were able to read that. If not, she's basically saying that all fat people have to spend their entire lives on guard because they never know if someone is truly interested in a genuine relationship with them or just using them in one way or another. And what gets me about this is it's just such a human experience, like a really universal experience to doubt yourself in relation to others. But somehow she's convinced that she wouldn't be experiencing this if she wasn't fat. Not to be depressing, but it doesn't go away when you look a certain way. I think it's rooted in something deeper than what we look like, more like what we feel we have to offer this world and other people. So I put these side by side because they're a few months apart on her account. And if you notice in the first one, she definitely doesn't seem happy about the idea of losing weight, even though it's something she clearly desires. In the second one, after she started achieving her goal, she is legitimately glowing, like so happy. I'm sure a lot of her own community would see this weight loss as a personal attack on them, because nobody is allowed to make decisions for themselves about their weight unless it's to gain more, apparently. I mean, that's how I feel, at least. Lizzo announced she gained weight last week, And the community celebrated her, like rallied around her. But this time last year, she was being dragged for drinking smoothies and jump roping. Make it make sense. Anyways, I'm happy for this girl and definitely going to keep checking in on her progress.
No, because I am 100% confident that this is what straight men see when they are looking at a mediocre thin woman and her exceptionally hot fat friend standing next to each other.
Yes, you're pretty.
You're not looking at
Yes,
me.
you're pretty.
Do you think I'm pretty? Look at me. Look at me. Look at me.
And you're pretty. You're pretty.
This is that anger I keep talking about. She really had to create a villain out of an imaginary thin person in her mind to make the point that she thinks she should be seen as beautiful. I know she didn't frame it around herself, but I'm reading in between the lines a little bit. It's such a short, out of context video, but it says a lot to me because you have to constantly be operating with a certain framework to be able to effortlessly connect this picture to the insecurity you feel about your appearance.
Listen up.
So just to be clear, we've all noticed that every time a fat person is like, hey, I kind of don't hate myself, there's someone in the comments like, but what about your health?
Always.
First of all, there's no reasonable argument against treating somebody like a human being and wanting them to love themselves. That's sociopathic.
Sociopathic.
It's also incredibly ableist to dislike somebody or think they're not deserving of equal treatment because they're unhealthy. There are some people with chronic conditions who simply cannot be. So let's nix that. Additionally, you only care about health when it's in the form of fat. You have thin friends who live off of hot Cheetos and Monster energy drinks, and you do not say a damn thing. Truth. So what is the truth?
Okay, when you choose to post on social media publicly, you open yourself up to the entire world. We all get to decide whether we make our social media accounts private or public. So to solely expect to be positively reinforced by the entire world is unrealistic and ridiculous. The comments referenced here said, but it's not healthy to be obese, and no, I won't support an unhealthy body type. So not even hateful comments, just opinions that you definitely don't like as much as the overly supportive comments from people who are basically saying, I don't care about your health.
That's my friend Marissa, and we did a little bit of an experiment. I remade that exact same video. Exact same sound, exact text on the screen, even down to the caption and some of the hashtags. Now Marissa has a much larger audience than I do, but the video's got about the same amount of views. If you want to watch mine, it's the last video on my page. Both videos got people talking, but you'll notice in my comment section, if people are disagreeing with me, it's mostly with semantics and they're doing it cordially. And no one is attacking me. Now go to Marissa's comment section and it's full of really hateful abuse, troll comments, really awful stuff. And then come back and tell me that anti-fat bias doesn't exist.
Okay, so I'm sure what she's saying is true, but it's actually not something that's exclusive to this movement. It's an observable phenomena in every social justice movement in the early stages. When an advocate for a cause has zero stakes in that cause, they're received better than those with something to gain. I may make a video about this in the future, but even just thinking about it for a second, it's easy to understand that in any interaction where someone is asking something of us that's outside of our norm, we automatically feel defensive. So if the person asking something of you seems to have nothing to gain by the ask, then that person is projecting selflessness rather than selfishness. A good example for understanding this is studies that have been done on displaced people panhandling, where they've dressed certain individuals to appear as though they're not homeless, like they look like they have money, but they're still asking for money, in areas where there were people who fit the typical ideals associated with homelessness. And the people who actually looked like they weren't homeless were given more money than the people who looked like they really needed it. It's definitely not a pretty aspect of our psychology, but it's consistently observable.
Let's talk about it. The reason we can't shy away from these topics is that oppression is intersectional. Fat phobia is a byproduct of white supremacy, just like racism and anti-Semitism. And comparing oppressions to oppressions is not helping anyone because they're all interconnected. Yeah? Get a grip.
Yeah, so we gotta end this one. I'm really tired of this rhetoric. Comparing oppressions to oppressions actually has some utility, and she's exemplifying that utility right now with this TikTok. When you don't compare oppressions to oppressions, you walk around asserting to strangers that your inability to lose weight is the same thing as segregation or what the Germans did to the Jewish people. I really don't think she would say these exact words to anyone who actually experienced these things. So that in itself would be a really good reason for her to contemplate how much she even believes what is coming out of her mouth. Thank you for coming to hang out on this video. I really would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I'm going to have a new video up soon and hopefully a camera setup here shortly. So I will see you guys in the next video.